Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Bola Tinubu submits 4 tax bills to the National Assembly for consideration, among which is a bill intended to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service. The House of Representatives urges the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to review cases where individuals have been held in pre-trial detention for an extended period and take necessary steps to expedite their trials. And former Vice President Atiku Abubakar proposes a 6-year single-term rotational presidency between the southern and northern regions of Nigeria.
In on business news, federal government will unlock $10 billion deep-water investment with new oil and gas tax relief.
On sports news tonight, Super Eagles Victor Boniface battle with teammates Victor Osimhen, Ademola Lookman, Wilfred Ndidi and Josh Meyer for Player of the Month in the NFF Monthly Football Awards.
And from Abuja, the nation's capital, the Niger State Emergency Management Agency says 20 dead bodies have been recovered from the Bajibo riverboat mishap, which occurred on the 1st of October.
And in international news from London, the Lebanese health minister has said that 1,974 people, including 127 children, have been killed in Israeli attacks in the last year.
The National Assembly has received President Bola Tinubu's communication seeking consideration and passage of the proposed fiscal policy and tax reform bill to align with ongoing financial reforms of the federal government and enhance efficiency in tax compliance. The bills are the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, which is expected to provide the fiscal work for tax in the country, and the Tax Administration Bill, which will provide clear and concise legal framework for all taxes in the country and reduce disputes. Others are the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which will repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which will create a tax tribunal and a tax ombudsman. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Mezoke, reports.
Lawmakers in the upper legislative chamber reconvene for plenary on the last legislative day of the week. The President of the Senate presents a communication from President Bola Tinubu submitting 4 tax reform bills to the Senate.
The Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill repeals the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act number 13 of 2007 and establishes the Nigeria Revenue Service to assess, collect, and account for revenue accruable to the government of the Federation.
The President's letter is also read in the House of Representatives.
The Nigerian tax bill, which should provide a consolidated fiscal framework for taxation in Nigeria.
Separately, after 3 months of suspension, the South-South Development Bill, kicked against by a majority of the lawmakers, is once again resuscitated.
That is exclusively dedicated to a region that understands our unique issues and can craft tailored solutions for them, just like the other 5 geopolitical regions.
In a sharp turnaround, lawmakers began canvassing for its passage.
Each of the 6 geopolitical zones in this country seemingly would have their own development commission. So excluding the South-South might appear to be a sort of injustice. There goes a saying that what is good for the goose is also good for the gander.
The NDDC that some people may say is already there. It's not a geopolitical commission created. It was created to manage the issues of development and crisis emanating from oil-producing communities.
Other lawmakers mute the idea for an alteration of the name and membership of the Niger Delta Development Commission.
The name and the act should be changed, right, to now include other oil-producing areas that are not in the present NDDC act.
States that will eventually produce oil in commercial quantities should be allowed to join the NDDC. There is no doubt about that. because it's resource-based.
Separately, a bill for an act to establish the Police Service Commission Training Institute also scaled second reading. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The House of Representatives is urging the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation to review cases where individuals have been held in pre-trial detention for an extended period and take necessary steps to expedite their trials. The House also urged the judiciary to adopt innovative case management strategies to ensure timely hearings, with special consideration for individuals who have endured an undue amount of time in pre-trial detention. This followed the adoption of a motion moved by Honorable Ahmed Mohammed during the House of Reps plenary in Abuja.
The House knows that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and the international human rights standards underscore the fundamental rights to a fair and speedy trial. Observes that numerous individuals are languishing in prolonged pretrial detention, often exceeding legal limits by years, thereby violating their rights and contributing to prison overcrowding. Also observes that a significant number of these individuals are detained for minor offenses requiring minimal or no extensive investigation. Concerned that the delay in adjudicating legal matters results in prison congestion, violates rights of the accused, and erodes public confidence in the judicial system. Alarmed that the trial delays dissuade witness appearances and compromise the integrity of the judicial process. Cognizant of the need to address this systemic injustice and uphold the fundamental rights of a fair trial for all. The House therefore resolves to urge the Attorney General and Minister of Justice to review cases where individuals have been held in pre-trial detention for an extended period and take necessary steps to expedite their trials.
Against the backdrop of an appraisal of another phase of review of the 1999 Constitution by the National Assembly as amended, the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has recommended a rotation of presidential position among the 6 geopolitical zones flowing between the North and the South on a single-term basis of 6 years. His proposal, addressed to the Deputy President of the Senate and Chairman, Senate Committee on Constitution Review, Senator Barau Jibrin, contains recommendations bordering on themes such as procedures for the educational qualification of candidates in election and internal democracy in political parties. Mr. Atiku Abubakar believes that the proposed amendments will enthrone the discipline needed in a democracy, and they are necessary in regulating elections in Nigeria. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, is asking professional bodies in Nigeria to stand up and rescue the country from collapse. ASUU President Professor Emmanuel Osodeke made the call at the Union State of the Nation conference in Abuja, where he blamed the political elite for the current state of the country. Meanwhile, the keynote speaker at the event, retired General Ishola Williams, is putting the blame on the masses, whom he describes as the followers of the elites.
It's a gathering of professors, senior lecturers, and labor leaders as the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, revives its State of the Nation conference.
From the National Association of University Teachers in 1970.
The convener sets the tone for the conversations, highlighting some key expectations.
The objective of the union extends beyond just the pursuit of the conditions and welfare of our members. The present foreign control governance system that only serves the interests of few primitive accumulators and foreign organizations need to be changed.
The theme of the conference is Nigeria in a State of Crisis, the search for new path to development. Resource persons brainstorm on the challenges and solutions to Nigeria's development journey and the new path that the conference hopes to chart.
Look, the crisis of democracy, even in North America and Canada, the professionals confronted by telling the politicians, enough is enough. We are not going to accept this anymore. And that is what we need to start thinking about. Because what they are doing, they cannot do it unless professionals keep quiet and collude with them to do it.
The problem is not leadership. The problem is followership. And since leaders don't drop from heaven, it means that
If you have a corrupt leader, the elites have accepted that leadership.
However, while the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress calls for a joint action of all unions in the academia against the political class, the chairman of the House Committee on Tertiary Education is asking the union to shelve its planned nationwide strike.
There are about 5 or 4 unions in the universities. There are about 2 or more in the colleges of education, even in polytechnics, and even College of Agriculture. If we get all these unions to agree, probably on a national day of action in Nigeria, and we bring it to NLC, one day the country is going to stand still for us to realize the importance of education.
As the intellectual backbone of our nation, ASUU must lead in initiating studies that will address our daunting challenges as a nation. I urge ASUU to shape plans for another round of strike once the 14 days ultimatum issued to government elapses.
This conference is happening at a time that members of the union are threatening to embark on a nationwide strike over several unresolved issues, including areas of salaries and the renegotiation of the 2009 agreement with the federal government.
Let's talk politics now, and with the upcoming River State Council election less than 48 hours away, the political tension in the state is at fever pitch as members of the PDP staged a protest in opposition to the exercise. Meanwhile, the Martin Amewele-led House of Assembly have also passed a resolution on the legality of the polls.
The latest in the series of controversies trailing the planned local government election in Rivers State is this protest by members of the People's Democratic Party, ironically, the ruling party in the state. The protesters, comprising immediate past council chairmen, National Assembly members, former chief of staff to the government house, and other appointees loyal to the FCT minister. Interestingly, the PDP members are accompanied by members of a faction of the opposition All Progressives Congress, led by Mr. Tony Okocha. They took off from the PDP secretariat along Aba Road and marched to the office of the Department of State Services and the police headquarters in Old GRA, where they submitted a protest petition. Adding to the opposition is the Martin Amewele-led River State House of Assembly. During a plenary session, the Assembly passed a resolution calling for the immediate suspension of the elections based on a federal high court judgment from Abuja.
By this voting, honorable members, the resolution is hereby passed that a letter should be forwarded to the chairman of the River State Independent Electoral Commission, directing him to suspend the proposed October 5th, 2024 local government elections because of the judgment of the Federal High Court.
On the other hand, the River State House of Assembly, led by Victor Okojumbo, at its plenary session, voiced their support for the conduct of the polls.
The 10th River State House of Assembly aligns itself in totality with the rule of law and judgments of both the Apex Court and the most recent order given by Justice IPC Igwe of the High Court of River State on the 4th day of September 2024.
Also backing the election is a faction of the Ijaw Youth Council, led by Alaye Theophilus, which has expressed strong support for the conduct of the local government elections.
As Ijaw Youth, we won't allow any individual or group of persons to disrupt the upcoming local government election.
Amidst this political tension, River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara is warning political thugs to steer clear of the polls on Saturday.
Any attempt by anybody or group of people to see that this process is disrupted, I can assure you, the gods of this land what we stand for as people who are fighting for genuine democracy would fight for us.
As the scheduled election date approaches, the divide between those supporting and those opposing the election continues to deepen, raising questions about the eventual outcome and the political future of Rivers State.
In part two, after the break, National Emergency Management Agency NEMA says over 1 million persons have been affected by flood across 180 local government areas across the country. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Bola Tinubu submits 4 tax bills to the National Assembly for consideration, among which is a bill intended to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Niger Revenue Service. The House of Representatives urges the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to review cases where individuals have been held in pre-trial detention for an extended period and take necessary steps to expedite their trials. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar proposes a 6-year single-term rotational presidency between the southern and northern regions of Nigeria, and the Israeli military warns southern Lebanon residents to evacuate from their homes. Staying with politics in Rivers State, and Governor Siminalayi Fubara says he regrets that his party, the PDP, will not be taking part in this Saturday's local government election in the state. Governor Fubara made the comment during a meeting with some stakeholders of the party at the government house in Port Harcourt. He said the election has to be held on Saturday to comply with the 3 months period of grace given by the federal government to begin the implementation of the Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy.
You know, this election, as the state excluder, my party is not participating. But because of the Supreme Court ruling that there must be elected officials to manage the affairs of local government, I have to, as a president, as a governor, I have to obey that. It did not end there. The president, after the Supreme Court invited us, and we had an understanding that we have a compliance duration of 90 days. So what we're doing here is to make sure that even if my party is not participating, the council process must stand for it.
So let's now head to the nation's capital, and Gloria Umezoke is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Gloria, over to you.
Thank you, Ayo. The Niger State Emergency Management Agency says 36 dead bodies have so far been recovered from the Niger boat accident. This latest death toll comes as the Niger State Governor, Mr. Umaru Bago, condoled with families of victims while also making his discomfort known over the recurring cases of boat mishaps in the state over the past few years. The agency's Director, Relief and Rehabilitation, Mr. Salihu Garba, told Channels Television that the likely cause of the accident was overloading and that no one was sure of the exact number of persons that boarded the ill-fated boat.
None of the 300 squeezed into this overloaded boat was clairvoyant. They had no inkling of the tragedy that awaited them. Not all of these travelers came out alive when tragedy struck. 2 days after this misfortune, efforts are still ongoing to retrieve dead bodies and perhaps rescue anyone alive.
Nobody can exactly tell you the number of individuals that were on that boat for now, because even the boat driver I cannot or could not tell us exactly the number of people that boarded that boat. What we are trying to do at the moment, we we're still searching for more bodies, as I said earlier. And we have opened a record book where anybody who have a relative missing or who have somebody who have traveled on that route should come and register, so that at the end of the whole exercise, we would be able to know how many missing people we still have, and those that we have recovered.
36 dead bodies have been recovered as of 6 p.m. today, and the rescuers are not soft-pedaling. Some nagging questions are unanswered though. For instance, why will about 300 people be allowed to be crammed into a boat designed to accommodate less? And what is the agency empowered to regulate boat travel doing to ensure compliance?
The primary cause of this was as a result of overloading. That boat was not supposed to have carried more than 100 or 150 passengers. Considering the old age of that boat, NIWA has the responsibility of regulating transport, inland waterways transportation, and also enforcing it as well. There is a bill before the State House of Assembly to ensure that laws are made that will enforce discipline. Penalties for those that go against laid down rules that we share safety in these waterways.
The Niger State Emergency Management Agency says it is collaborating with the National Inland Waterways Authority to ensure seafaring safety. The hope is that this synergy results in safety and ultimately a drastic reduction in boat accidents.
Meanwhile, the president has condoled with the government and people of Niger State over the Bajibo riverboat accident. President Tinubu commiserates with the families of the victims and prays for the repose of the souls of the dead. A statement issued by the Special Advisor, Information and Strategy to the President, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, says President Bola Tinubu has directed the National Inland Waterways Authority, NIWA, to investigate the spate of boat accidents in Niger State and across the country and devise modalities to check the trend. The president ordered NIWA to expand the scope of its surveillance of inland waters to ensure people's safety and prosecute boat operators violating the ban on night sailing. President Tinubu also thanked emergency workers and local divers who were working to find the remaining people. Over 1 million persons have been affected by flood across 180 local government areas across the country. The Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, Mrs. Zubaida Umar, gave the figure when she received humanitarian items for flood victims. Mrs. Umar explains that the donations were made by the United Arab Emirates and the Bank of Industry. She puts the total items received at 18,653 bags of 10 kilograms of rice and 50 tons of assorted foods.
We are gathered here to witness the handing over of 18,653 bags of 10 kg rice donated by the Bank of Industry and the 50 tons, which is equivalent to 1,696 cartons of humanitarian relief aid donated by the government of the UAE to support the ongoing efforts by the federal and state governments of Nigeria in mitigating the impact of the ongoing flood and other disasters in the country. The donations of relief materials by both BOI and the government of the UAE symbolize the manifestation of deep sympathy for people severely impacted by disasters on the one hand, and a long-standing bilateral relationship between Nigeria and the UAE.
Justice Myron Aneni of the FCT High Court has issued a public summons against the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Mr. Yahaya Bello, to attend court and answer to a fresh 16-count charge pending against him. By the summons, the former governor is to attend court on October the 24th in response to the summons and for his arraignment alongside two other defendants. Justice Anani issued the order for public summons in a ruling following an application by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Justice Anani ordered the EFCC to publish the public summons in a widely circulating newspaper. She also ordered the EFCC to paste copies of the public summons on Bello's last known address and in conspicuous places within the court premises. The EFCC had claimed that it has been unable to serve Mr. Bello with the charge filed on September 24, in which the ex-governor and 2 others were charged with criminal breach of trust to the tune of 110.4 billion naira. The other 2 defendants in the charge are Mr. Umar Oricha and Abdul Salami Hudu. Former Governor of Taraba State, Darius Ishaku, has been granted bail to the tune of 150 million naira and 2 sureties in like sum. The 2 sureties must be resident in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, with their house addresses verified by the registrar of the court. One of them must be a director with the Federal Civil Service. The former governor was arraigned by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on a 27 billion naira alleged fraud before Justice Silvanus Origi of the Federal Capital Territory High Court. Justice Origi barred the former governor and his co-defendant Bello Hero from traveling out of the country except with permission from the court. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, through his counsel, Rotimi Jacobs, did not oppose the bail request by the former governor. He stated that the EFCC had granted him administrative bail and he did not jump it. Justice Silvanus Origi subsequently fixed November 4, 5, and 13th for commencement of trial. Well, still ahead on the news at 10. Federal government to unlock $10 billion deep water investment with new oil and gas tax relief. That's after the break. Please join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. A former acting governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Shonubi, has said he learned that there were intrigues in politics in the Naira redesign exercise carried out in 2022. Mr. Shonubi, then Deputy Governor Operations before his appointment as acting CBN governor, said the former governor of the CBN, Godwin Emefiele, told him and others that there were intrigues and politics in the whole exercise. Mr. Shonubi, now retired, who is the prosecution third witness, made this claim in reaction to a question from Emefiele's lawyer, Olalekan Ojo, at the resumed hearing in the trial of the ex-governor of the CBN. Mr. Emefiele is being prosecuted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, before the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory on a 4-count charge bordering on disobedience to the direction of law and illegal act causing injury to the public in relation to the Naira redesign exercise. Justice Myron Aneni subsequently adjourned the case to October 9 for further hearing. But that's it from the nation's capital. For more on the news at 10, it's back to you, Ayo.
Many thanks, Gloria. Senator Jonathan Zwingina, former Senate Majority Leader and a renowned Nigerian politician, has passed away at the age of 70. He represented Adamawa South Senatorial District in the Senate and was a key founding member of the People's Democratic Party before later switching to the All Progressives Congress, the APC. Senator Zwingina was elected senator for the Adamawa South constituency of Adamawa State on the platform of the People's Democratic Party in 1999 and was re-elected in April 2003, again on the platform of the PDP. The former senator, who was 70 years old, served as a member of committees on works and housing, as chairman, establishment, internal affairs, information, special projects, privatization, and economic affairs. He served as Director General of the late MQ Abiola's 1993 presidential campaign. President Bola Tinubu has mandated a grant of 150,000 naira to be awarded to outstanding micro, small and medium enterprises in Enugu State. Vice President Kashim Shettima announced this at an expanded national MSME clinic held in the state. 48,000 jobs are expected to be created through the clinics.
The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, arrives at Akanu Ibiam International Airport in Enugu and is received by Governor Peter Mba alongside political and traditional leaders in the state. He inspects a guard of honor by the Nigerian military. The Vice President's first assignment in the coal city is the commissioning of the Enugu Fashion and Garment Hub. The hub is equipped with ultra-modern facilities, including branding machines, weaving machines, and sewing machines expected to provide job opportunities in Enugu State. Next is the Old Government Lodge, venue of the expanded National MSMEs Clinic. The Vice President tours the exhibition pavilion with an array of businesses and services on display. The Vice President makes a personal donation of 10 million naira to one of the entrepreneurs before moving into the hall for the event of the day. The Enugu Expanded National MSMEs Clinic is a collaboration between the federal and state governments, which seeks to promote the growth of small businesses in the state. Governor Mba says the vision of his administration is to empower the people as against giving them handouts.
The hub would play a vital role in fostering innovation, job creation, and global competitiveness, while offering training and resources for the next generation of fashion designers within Enugu State's creative and manufacturing sectors.
The Vice President reiterates the continuous commitment of the President towards the growth of MSMEs as he pledges more support to Enugu State governments.
This hub that we commissioned today, along with other hubs established across Nigeria, is a stepping stone to the economic height we have always desired. Aside from standing as one of the largest we have commissioned, this hub is equipped with cutting-edge technology to support the fashion manufacturing cluster in Enugu State, boosting production capacity and enabling economies of scale.
While in Enugu, the Vice President Kashim Shettima inspects the ongoing construction of the Enugu International Conference Center, which was abandoned for 25 years by successive administrations in the state, as well as the Enugu Command and Control Center, aimed at enhancing security patrol in the state.
The Bank of Industry says it has commenced the disbursement of 75 billion naira for large enterprises under the federal government Manufacturing Sector Fund. The managing director of the bank, Mr. Olashopo Olusi, who was speaking at the lecture series organized by the bank, explains that about 140 manufacturing companies across the country will receive 1 billion naira each at single-digit interest rate. He says so far, the bank has refunded small businesses to the tune of 77.7 billion naira.
It's the Bank of Industry's inaugural annual public lecture series, and the event is bringing together government officials, experts from the finance sector, and captains of industries.
July of 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
The theme of the lecture series is Creating Impact, the roles of MSMEs support and financing in alleviating poverty and food security in Nigeria. The managing director of the bank speaks to some of the interventions of the bank to catalyze growth through MSMEs.
Our efforts to support large production enterprises is also progressing under the 75 billion federal government Manufacturing Sector Fund. About 140 manufacturing companies will receive up to 1 billion naira at single-digit interest rates.
The guest lecturer is a professor of economics and development studies at the University of Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, Professor Akpan Epo. He identifies some of the challenges confronting the nation's MSMEs and the role of the development finance institutions.
MSMEs have impact on poverty reduction, employment, food security, growth, and other relevant economic indicators, such as inflation, exchange rate, openness, and the rest.
He then gives recommendations on how the role of MSMEs remain critical to job creation, food security, and income generation.
MSMEs operate in various stages of food supply chain, from production and processing to distribution and retail. By enhancing food production and distribution, MSMEs can contribute to food availability, a critical dimension of food security.
The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment gave words of assurance from the government over commitments to improve funding to the sector.
The Federal Executive Council approved the Economic Stabilization Bill just last week. This is a transformative bill that will make our business environment friendlier, stimulate investment, and reduce the tax burden on businesses and workers once they are passed into law in the coming weeks. The vision of the Bank of Industry
event also saw the launch of 2 landmark publications. Also, the BOI Price Sense NG, a price intelligence dashboard and mobile app for real-time monitoring of price variations of food commodities across the country.
Time now for some business news with Will Ibo.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the federal government is introducing new tax incentives to attract $5 to $10 billion in investment for deepwater offshore oil and gas operations. The move is part of the efforts to boost the sector and strengthen the economy. In a statement today, the special advisor to the president on energy, Mrs. Olu Verheyen, highlighted the package, which includes tax exemptions on diesel, compressed natural gas, CNG, and cooking gas aimed at supporting key investments in the sector. Now, the Nigeria Securities and Exchange Commission is joining their counterparts in the International Organization of Securities Commissions to celebrate the 8th edition of World Investor Week. Events slated for the year will run from October 7 to 13 with a theme focused on technology and digital finance, crypto assets, and sustainable finance. The Executive Commissioner Legal Enforcement of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Fana Chukwuogo, says investors will get tips for safe investments.
If you're a registered scheme, of course you are registered. And you've gone through some kind of process to be sure that you're fit and proper, whether it's you, the person providing the service, or is the product that you're bringing into the market. But for a Ponzi scheme, there's no registration, there's no vetting. These are just schemes that collect money from investors. First comers have the opportunity to be paid with money collected from later investors. These investments offer very high returns, and there's no consequent risk. There's no investment that can give you such high return without any risk. So if anybody is approaching any investor, offering you any investment that has very high returns, and there's no risk that is being disclosed, the investor would have to be wary. If you cannot find this in particular service provider or anybody offering you investment on the list of people registered with the SEC on our website, that is a red flag. If someone comes to you and is offering you an investment opportunity and you're asking questions and they're very reluctant about answering your questions, that in itself is a red flag.
Now, the global price of rice has dropped to its lowest level in 16 years, with prices last seen in 2008. This is based on data from the Thai Rice Exporters Association. The price drop comes after India relaxed its export restrictions following an assessment of its domestic rice production. India, a key exporter to both Asia and Africa, has driven the sharpest decline in rice prices in over 15 months. Meanwhile, Africa remains a major importer of rice, sourcing from India and Thailand. Rice is a crucial staple, making up around 60% of many diets across the African continent. A new report from Public First shows that Google tools and services boosted Nigeria's economy by about $1.8 billion in 2023. The Nigeria Digital Opportunity Report highlights that services like Google Search, Ads, YouTube, and Google Cloud enhance the productivity of businesses, creators, and workers across the country. In addition, Google's Digital Skills and Program and Career Certificates program benefited millions, with over 1.5 million young adults acquiring new digital skills in 2023. And negative sentiments continued at the domestic equities market for a second day. John Mekwa has the details.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the stock market reports. Well, a dip forward is what was recorded at the NGX at the close of Thursday's trade, with 859 billion naira taken away from the market cap, losing the 56 trillion naira level to 55.77. Also, big move right here, losing that 98,000 level to 97,064. That's a 1.14% red for the all-share index. The reason we have this is because of a lot of profit taking on Dangote Cement. Dangote Cement opened 532 naira, but at the close of trade, it was 478 naira 80 kobo. That's a whole 53 naira 20 kobo shaved off the share price of Dangote Cement. because of profit taking. Now, there were some, attempts to put the market back in the green zone, especially coming from the oil and gas. Obviously, Seplat had some positive movement today, and the counter did gain 3.80%, but it wasn't enough to cancel that Dangote for Friday. Consumer goods is also in the red because of Dangote sugar again, and Honeywell flour. Banking tried marginally 0.03%, but at the close of Thursday's trade, we saw that the bear has a strong hold on the market.
And that's a wrap on business. It's back to Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Will. Israel warns more people in southern Lebanon to evacuate their homes, including in the major city Nabatea, saying strikes will continue. The military says, for your safety and that of your children, do not go back home until further notice. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Lebanese Health Ministry has said that 1,974 people, including 127 children, have been killed in Israeli attacks in the last year. Airstrikes continued overnight. Here, residents gathering outside a Beirut building on fire after a strike in the early hours. Recent Israeli airstrikes have caused significant destruction in Beirut's southern suburb of Dahiya. The Israeli military says it has killed 15 Hezbollah members in an overnight airstrike. Residents in 25 additional areas in southern Lebanon have been told to evacuate their homes and head to the north. Queues of passengers have been seen inside Beirut's Rafik Hariri International Airport as many scrambled to leave the country. The only flights available were operated by Lebanon's national carrier, Middle East Airlines, as other international airlines had suspended operations. Britain and the US have chartered private flights for their citizens to leave. Others have been travelling by boat, here hundreds arriving in Turkey. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Forces has announced that 3 months ago it killed 3 senior Hamas leaders in Gaza. Among them is Rohi Mushtaha, identified by the IDF as the head of the Hamas government in Gaza, along with Sameh al-Siraj and Sami Uda, who were responsible for security in Hamas. The IDF said they were hiding in an underground compound in northern Gaza and were killed by airstrikes. Israel said Hamas did not announce the deaths in order to prevent loss of morale and functioning of its terror operatives. Donald Trump resorted to crimes while trying to overturn his 2020 election defeat and should not escape charges, that's according to prosecutors. A new court filing challenges Trump's claims that he should avoid a trial thanks to a recent landmark US Supreme Court ruling. This said American presidents should be immune from prosecution when acting in an official capacity. Mr. Trump was president when the alleged offences were committed, but prosecutors say he was acting in a private capacity, not an official one. NATO's new chief, Mark Rutte, has discussed the war in Ukraine and Kyiv's so-called victory plan with President Volodymyr Zelensky after arriving in the Ukrainian capital on his first official trip since becoming the alliance's Secretary General.
Yes, we have not spoken for 3 months. Thank you so much.
Mr. Zelensky told a joint press conference that he would like to see Kyiv's allies shooting down Iranian missiles and drones used by Russia in attacks on Ukraine, as some of Israel's allies did when Tehran attacked Israel with missiles this week. Wary of Russia's response, Ukraine's allies have held off on making such a move. Rutte affirmed the Western Defense Alliance's commitment to Ukraine eventually becoming a member.
But this is my first time here as NATO Secretary General. And it was important to me that I come to Ukraine at the start of my mandate to make crystal clear to you, to the people of Ukraine, and to everyone watching, that NATO stands with Ukraine.
9 people have died in a fire at a hospital in southern Taiwan. The fire struck the Pingtung County Hospital. The wet and windy weather complicated the fire response. The cause of the fire, which was put out more than 3 hours later, officials said, is still under investigation. Some reports have suggested it was due to an electrical fault. Typhoon Krathon has made landfall in Taiwan, bringing torrential rains and fierce winds. That's according to the National Meteorological Center. Here's security camera footage capturing a store counter and shelf being blown away due to strong winds in Kaohsiung. Heavy winds and rain brought by Typhoon Krathon have caused at least 2 deaths and injured 102 people. The typhoon is forecast to move slowly northeast and weaken into a tropical depression. And an Italian land artist ahead of the US election has created a huge portrait of the Democratic presidential nominee and US Vice President Kamala Harris. The artist, known abroad for his land portraits of former US Presidents Barack Obama and Donald Trump, as well as Pope Francis, decided to pay homage to Harris after being impressed by one of her quotes: "Optimism is the fuel that drives every struggle we do." The work, drawn freehand with a plough pulled by a tractor, was created on a plot of wheat stubble in Castagnaro in the province of Verona. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. The Nigerian Football Federation has unveiled its maiden nominees for the NFF Monthly Football Awards. The nominees have been selected according to their performances in the month of September. For the male player category, Victor Boniface has been selected alongside Super Eagles teammates Victor Osimhen, Ademola Lookman, Wilfred Ndidi, and George Maya. In the female category, Super Falcons captain Rashida Ajibade takes the lead as Rosario Chiwendu Iheozo, goalkeeper Chiamaka Nadoze, and forward Rinshola Babajide are also following. Winners will be picked from votes of fans and journalists from October the 3rd to the 7th. And for select results from the UEFA Europa League, we have the results right here on your screen. Tottenham Hotspur, they made it 2 victories in 2 as their youthful side won in Hungary against Ferencváros 2-1. Hoffenheim beat Dynamo Kiev 2-0. Galatasaray were held to a 2-0 draw by FK IFS. Lazio beat Nice 4-1. Olympiacos triumphed against Braga 3-0. Anderlecht beat Real Sociedad at home 2-1. And that's your Sports News tonight. I'm Kelly. You guys back to Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu has submitted 4 tax bills to the National Assembly for consideration, among which is a bill intended to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Act and establish the Nigeria Revenue Service. And the House of Representatives has urged the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to review cases where individuals have been held in pre-trial detention for an extended period and take necessary steps to expedite their trials. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Have a good night and please stay safe.